Last month, I did something weird. I spent 40 hours going through bank statements from 847 people who volunteered their financial data for a study I was doing. And what I found was so consistent, so obvious, and so completely ignored by everyone giving financial advice that I had to make this video. My name is Brad, and I love to stare at spreadsheets, so you don't have to. And what I'm about to show you is going to make you look at your expenses completely differently. Because the problem isn't what you think it is. Here's what everyone gets wrong about expenses. They think the problem is spending too much money, but that's not it. I looked at broke people spending $3,000 a month and wealthy people spending $8,000 a month. The amount doesn't matter nearly as much as something else, and once you understand what that something else is, everything clicks into place. Let me show you what I mean. Out of those 847 bank accounts, I found that 63% of people had what I call expense creep. That's when your expenses slowly grow over time without you making any conscious decision to let them grow. It just happens, and it's absolutely destroying people's finances. Here's how expense creep works. You sign up for a subscription, $10 a month for some streaming service, not a big deal. A month later, you sign up for another one, $12. Then you upgrade your phone plan because they offered you more data. That's an extra $15 a month. Then you start getting your groceries delivered because it's convenient. That costs another $30 a month in fees and tips. Then you join a gym. $50 a month. Then you subscribe to some app that promised to make your life easier. $8 a month. None of these decisions feel significant when you make them. Each one is just a small monthly charge. But 6 months later, you're spending an extra $125 a month on things that didn't exist in your budget before. That's $1,500 a year. And here's the crazy part. Most people have no idea it happened. In the bank accounts I analyzed, the average person had 19 ongoing subscriptions and recurring charges. 19. And when I asked them to guess how many they had, the average guess was 7. They were off by 12 subscriptions. That means they were paying for 12 things every single month that they literally forgot existed. But it gets worse. Of those 19 subscriptions, people were actively using an average of 6. That means they were paying for 13 services every month that they never touched. 13 times an average subscription cost of about $14 is $182 a month. That's $2,184 a year down the drain for stuff they don't even use. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Brad, subscriptions are a problem. I get it. But that's just one piece of this. The real issue is way bigger than forgotten subscriptions, and it's something that nobody talks about because it's uncomfortable. The real issue is that most people have no idea what percentage of their income goes to locked-in expenses versus flexible expenses. And that ratio is the single biggest predictor of whether someone will build wealth or stay broke. Let me explain what I mean. I divided everyone's expenses into two categories. Locked-in expenses and everything else. Locked-in expenses are things you legally committed to paying on a regular schedule. Rent, mortgage, car payments, insurance, phone contracts, minimum debt payments, and yes, all those subscriptions you signed up for. These are obligations. You can't just decide not to pay them this month without consequences. Everything else is flexible. Food, gas, entertainment, shopping, eating out. You have control over these in real time. You can decide to spend more or less based on what's happening in your life. Here's what I found. People who had locked-in expenses above 55% of their take-home income had an average savings rate of 3%. 3%. They were barely saving anything. And most of them had credit card debt that was growing, not shrinking. People who had locked-in expenses below 40% of their income had an average savings rate of 22%. That's over 7 times higher. 7 times. Same economy, same job market, same everything. The only difference was what percentage of their income was locked into obligations before they even started their month. Think about what this means. If you make $60,000 a year take-home and 55% is locked into obligations, that's $33,000, committed before you do anything else. You have $27,000 for the entire year to cover food, gas, clothes, emergencies, fun, and hopefully saving something. That's $2,250 a month for everything else. Now, let's say you have locked-in expenses at 40% instead. That's $24,000 committed. Now you have $36,000 for everything else. That's $3,000 a month. That's an extra $750 per month to work with. That $750 is the difference between struggling and thriving. But here's what kills me. Nobody thinks about this when they sign up for things. They think about whether they can afford the monthly payment right now, not whether it makes sense long term, not what percentage of their income it represents, just whether the payment fits in their current budget. I saw this pattern over and over in the data. Someone making $55,000 a year with a $500 car payment. That's almost 11% of their gross income going to a depreciating asset. Someone making $48,000 a year paying $1,800 a month for a one-bedroom apartment because it's in a trendy neighborhood. That's 45% of their gross income, probably 55% of their take-home just for housing. These decisions make it mathematically impossible to build wealth. Not hard, impossible. Because there's simply not enough money left over after the obligations to save meaningful amounts. And this is where people get defensive. They say things like, "But I need a car for work. I need somewhere to live." Yeah, you do, but you don't need that car at that price, and you don't need that apartment in that location. There are always options. Always. People just don't want to consider them because it means admitting they made a mistake or accepting something less impressive than what they currently have. I get it. I really do. I'm from Texas. I understand the cultural pressure to have a nice truck, to live in a nice place, to look successful. But you know what's not impressive? Being 55 years old with $68,000 in retirement savings and another 15 years of work ahead of you because you spent your entire adult life with locked-in expenses that were too high. Let me show you the math on why this matters so much. Let's compare two people. Both make $70,000 a year take-home. Person A has locked-in expenses of 55%. Person B has locked-in expenses of 40%. Let's say both of them try to save 10% of their income. That's $7,000 a year, or about $583 a month. Person A has $38,500 locked in and is trying to save $7,000. That leaves them $24,500 for everything else. That's $2,042 a month. For food, gas, clothes, home stuff, entertainment, unexpected expenses, everything. That's tight. Really tight. Chances are they're going to dip into that savings or go into debt when something unexpected happens. And something unexpected always happens. Person B has $28,000 locked in and is saving the same $7,000. That leaves them $35,000 for everything else. That's $2,917 a month. That's $875 more per month than Person A. That buffer means when unexpected stuff happens, they can handle it without touching savings or using credit cards. Over 10 years, both trying to save the same amount, Person A probably averages about 4% actual savings because they keep having to pull money out or go into debt for emergencies. Person B actually saves the full 10% because they have enough buffer to handle life. At 7% investment returns, after 10 years, Person A has about $38,000 saved. Person B has $97,000 saved, same income. The only difference is the percentage locked into obligations. After 30 years, that gap is insane. Person A might have $250,000 if they're lucky. Person B has over $700,000. That's retirement versus working until you die. And it all comes down to one decision point early in life about how much to lock into obligations. Now let me tell you about the second pattern I found in those bank accounts. This one was even more disturbing. I call it the invisible bleed. This is money that leaves your account regularly but doesn't feel like an expense because it's small and automated. The average person in my study had $37 per month leaving their account in charges under $5 each. $37 doesn't sound like much, but that's $444 a year for transactions so small you don't even notice them. And when I dug into what these charges were, most of them were things people didn't even remember signing up for. App subscriptions that renew annually, fees for accounts they forgot they had, charges from services they used once 2 years ago, small monthly donations to causes they no longer care about, cloud storage upgrades they don't need. It's death by 1,000 cuts. But here's what really got me. When I added up all the forgotten subscriptions, unused services, and invisible bleed charges, the average came to $263 per month. $263. That's $3,156 per year that people are spending without getting any value from it. None. Zero value. Now, let me show you what $3,156 a year actually means. If you took that money and invested it instead of wasting it, at 7% returns over 30 years, you'd have $318,000. $318,000 that most people are just pissing away on stuff they forgot they're paying for. Think about that for a second. Just by canceling the stuff you don't use and don't remember, you could retire with an extra $350,000. Not by earning more, not by getting lucky, just by stopping the bleeding. This is what I mean when I say the problem isn't spending too much. The problem is unconscious spending. It's money leaving your account without you making an active decision to spend it. And the reason this is so dangerous is because it happens slowly over time. Each individual decision is small, but they stack up into massive amounts. Here's the thing that really frustrates me. All of this is completely avoidable, every single bit of it. You don't need to be smarter. You don't need to make more money. You don't need some complex strategy. You just need to be intentional about your expenses instead of letting them happen to you. Let me tell you what intentional looks like. Once a year, you sit down and review every single recurring expense you have, every subscription, every automatic payment, every obligation. And you ask yourself one simple question: is this still worth it? Not was it worth it when I signed up. Not might it be worth it someday. Is it worth it right now, today, given my current situation and goals? If the answer is no, or even maybe, you cancel it. Right then, not later, not when you have time to think about it, right then. This one practice, done once a year for about 2 hours, would save the average person over $2,000 annually. 2 hours for $2,000 is $1,000 an hour. Show me another activity that pays that well. But most people won't do it. You know why? Because it's boring. It's not exciting. It doesn't feel productive. Scrolling through your subscriptions and canceling stuff doesn't give you the same dopamine hit as buying something new or watching videos about getting rich quick. But it's the boring stuff that actually works. Now, let me address something that always comes up. People say, but Brad, I want to enjoy my life. I don't want to be cheap. I don't want to cancel everything and live like a monk. And I completely agree. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you should spend money on things that actually improve your life, things you use, things you value, things that make you happy. But most of the money bleeding out of your account isn't going to those things. It's going to stuff you forgot about, stuff you never use, stuff that made sense at one point but doesn't anymore. Canceling a gym membership you never use isn't being cheap. It's being smart. That $50 a month should either go to a gym you actually use or to something else you actually value. Spending money on things you don't use isn't generous or fun. It's just wasteful. Here's how I think about this. Every dollar you spend should pass the value test. Am I getting value from this that justifies the cost? Notice I didn't say, am I getting value equal to the cost? I said value that justifies the cost. Sometimes spending $20 on something that makes you genuinely happy is worth way more than $20. That passes the test. But spending $15 a month on a subscription you haven't opened in 6 months, that fails the test. That's not about being cheap. That's about being honest with yourself about what actually adds value to your life. And this brings me to the third pattern I found. This one was the most surprising. People who checked their bank accounts more frequently spent less money, not because they were tracking every expense, but because seeing their balance regularly made them more conscious of their spending. People who checked their account once a month or less had an average of 16% higher discretionary spending than people who checked it at least once a week, 16%. That's because when you only look at your money once a month, you lose touch with it. You forget how much you spent. You don't have an accurate sense of where you stand, so you make worse decisions. But when you look at it regularly, even if you're just glancing at the balance, you stay connected to your financial reality. You see the number going down and it makes you think twice before spending. You see a charge you forgot about and you remember to cancel it. It keeps money at the front of your mind instead of something you ignore until there's a problem. This is why I look at my accounts every single day. Not because I'm obsessed, not because I'm cheap, but because it takes 30 seconds and it keeps me connected to my financial reality. And that connection prevents mistakes that cost way more than 30 seconds to fix. Now let me give you the specific steps to fix this, not vague advice. Actual steps you can take today that will change your situation. Step 1. Calculate your locked-in expense percentage. Go through your bank statements for the last 3 months. Add up every recurring charge, rent, mortgage, car payment, insurance, phone, subscriptions, debt payments, everything that hits your account on a schedule. Divide that by your monthly take-home income. That's your percentage. If it's over 50%, you're in the danger zone. You need to get it down. If it's over 60%, you're in crisis mode. Something has to change immediately, or you're never going to build wealth. Step 2. List every subscription and recurring charge, every single one. Go through your credit card statements and bank statements for the last 6 months. Write down everything that charges you automatically. Then next to each one, write the last time you actually used it. Be honest. If you can't remember the last time you used it, you're not using it enough to justify paying for it. Step 3. Cancel everything you don't use at least twice a month. This is the rule. If you're not using something at least twice a month, it's not worth keeping. I don't care if it's only $5. I don't care if you might use it someday. Cancel it. You can always resubscribe later if you actually need it, but chances are you won't because you don't actually need it. Step 4. For your locked-in expenses that are too high, make a plan to reduce them. This might mean refinancing your mortgage. It might mean selling your car and buying something cheaper. It might mean moving to a less expensive place when your lease is up. These are hard decisions, but they're necessary if you want to build wealth. I'm not saying you have to do everything immediately, but you need a plan. You need to know which locked-in expense you're going to tackle first and when you're going to do it. Write it down. Put it on your calendar. Commit to it. Step 5. Set up a weekly money date. Every week, same day, same time. Spend 15 minutes looking at your finances. Check your account balances. Review your recent transactions. Look for any charges you don't recognize. This keeps you connected to your money and prevents problems from getting out of control. That's it. Those 5 steps will solve 90% of expense problems. It's not complicated. It's not sexy, but it works. Now let me tell you why this matters beyond just the money. When your expenses are out of control, it creates constant low-level stress. You're always worried about money. You're always wondering if you can afford things. You're always dealing with the consequences of past decisions. That stress affects everything. Your health, your relationships, your sleep, your ability to focus on what actually matters. But when you get your expenses under control, something shifts. You stop worrying. You have clarity. You can make decisions based on what you want instead of what you can barely afford. That's what this is really about. Not spreadsheets, peace of mind, options, freedom. I've been on both sides. I spent years with expenses I couldn't control and constant money stress. The last 15 years, I've kept expenses below 40% with complete clarity about every dollar. The difference is night and day. The stressed version of me couldn't sleep well, couldn't focus, made decisions based on fear. The in-control version sleeps great, has complete focus, makes decisions based on what actually matters. Same person, same income. The only difference is getting intentional about expenses. Most people won't do anything. They'll think, yeah, this makes sense, then go back to their routine. 6 months from now, same subscriptions, same stress. Later never comes. Don't be that person. Take 1 hour today. Cancel 5 things you don't need. You'll save at least $50 a month. That's $600 a year from 1 hour of work. Then next week, do it again. Your future self will thank you. Because the money you save isn't just money. It's options. It's freedom. Subscribe for more reality about money.